She was just the quiet welder at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, always working the night shift alone. The other workers barely noticed her, just another body filling a position nobody else wanted. But when the submarine's nuclear reactor started showing critical readings and the Admiral demanded answers, she calmly walked past every security checkpoint, through every restricted door, into the most classified section of the base. Because the woman they thought was just welding hull plates had clearance codes that made Navy SEALs look like civilians. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden expertise and deadly secrets, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These are the secrets that change everything. Her name was Elena Vasquez, but everyone at Norfolk Naval Shipyard called her Night Shift when they bothered to call her anything at all. For 8 years, she had been working the graveyard welding rotation, showing up at 11 p.m. sharp and disappearing before dawn like a ghost in coveralls. The shipyard hummed with its usual midnight activity. USS Virginia, a Virginia-class attack submarine, sat in Dry Dock 3, her hull gleaming under the harsh industrial lights. Elena worked methodically on the outer hull, her welding torch throwing sparks across the metal plating. The repetitive work suited her, quiet, precise, unnoticed. Around her, the skeleton crew of night workers went about their business. Machinist Derek Sullivan complained loudly about overtime policies while grinding metal fittings. Supervisor Frank Morrison made his rounds with a clipboard, marking off completed tasks without really looking at the work. Security guard Tommy Chen patrolled the perimeter, more focused on his coffee than any real threats. None of them knew that Elena Vasquez held security clearances that went deeper than the Mariana Trench. Tuesday night started like any other. Elena arrived through the contractor entrance at 10:45 p.m., scanning her worn ID badge that read Shipyard Welder, Level 2 Access. She nodded to the guard, collected her gear, and made her way to Dry Dock 3, where Virginia waited for her routine hull maintenance. What her badge didn't show was the quantum-encrypted chip embedded in the magnetic strip, a chip that could access systems most admirals didn't know existed. By midnight, Elena was deep in her work, methodically welding reinforcement plates along the submarine's pressure hull. The work was precise, requiring steady hands and years of experience. She listened to the familiar sounds of the night shift, grinding metal, hydraulic pumps, and the distant hum of the nuclear power plant that kept the base running. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb walked past her workstation, barely glancing at the sparks flying from her torch. "How's it coming, Vasquez?" he called out, not really expecting an answer. "On schedule, Chief," Elena replied without looking up, her voice muffled by her welding mask. Her hand never paused in their precise movements along the hull seam. What Chief Webb didn't notice was that Elena wasn't just welding. She was installing microscopic sensors in the hull plating, sensors that could detect submarine signatures from 300 miles away. The sensors were Neptune Division technology, so advanced that they could identify individual submarines by their unique acoustic fingerprints. Each one Elena installed created another node in a global detection network that tracked every underwater vessel on Earth. The Chinese Type 095 submarines that Beijing thought were undetectable, Elena's sensors had been monitoring them for 2 years. Earlier that evening, she had received an encrypted message through her welding equipment's heads-up display, a system that appeared to show welding parameters but actually delivered intelligence briefings. The message was brief. Package arriving 0200. Prepare for Phase 3 extraction. Phase 3 meant someone was coming to collect the intelligence she had been gathering for months. Elena had been documenting every submarine that entered Norfolk, photographing classified modifications, and analyzing new technologies being tested on the fleet. Tonight, that information would be transferred to a handler she had never met. But first, she had to finish installing the sensor array. At exactly 12:47 a.m., everything changed. The first alarm was subtle, a low tone from the reactor monitoring station that most workers mistook for a routine system check. But Elena recognized it immediately. Her welding torch went silent as her brain shifted into a different mode, processing threat levels and response protocols that had been programmed into her decades ago. Reactor anomaly detected. All personnel to emergency stations. The second alarm was unmistakable, a piercing wail that sent immediate panic through the shipyard. Emergency broadcasts began echoing across the facility. This is not a drill. Nuclear containment protocols now in effect. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. Chaos erupted. Workers dropped their tools and ran for the exits. Supervisors shouted conflicting orders over the alarm siren. Security guards appeared from everywhere, speaking rapidly into their radios as they began herding civilians towards safe zone. "What's happening?" Chief Webb demanded as Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes materialized beside him. "Sir, we've got critical readings from Virginia's reactor compartment," Hayes replied tersely. dangerously. Core temperature spiking, containment pressure dropping. This could be a catastrophic meltdown. Through it all, Elena continued welding, but beneath her calm exterior, her mind was racing. The timing was too perfect. Her handler was supposed to arrive in 73 minutes, and now a nuclear emergency was forcing base-wide evacuation. This wasn't coincidence. This was a cover operation. Someone else was using the chaos to move through the base undetected. "Ma'am," security guard Chen approached her station. "You need to evacuate with the rest of the contractors." Elena looked up through her welding mask with the same calm expression she wore when asking about overtime policies. "Just need to finish this seam, Tommy. Safety first, right?" Chen hesitated, torn between protocol and the fact that Elena had always been the most reliable worker on the night shift. He hurried away to help with the more urgent evacuations. As the shipyard emptied, Elena continued working, but now she was listening. Through her enhanced hearing equipment, disguised as standard ear protection, she could detect movement patterns throughout the base. The evacuation was proceeding normally in most areas, but there were anomalies. 3 heat signatures moving against the flow of evacuees, heading deeper into restricted sections. Her handler wasn't coming to collect intelligence. Someone was coming to steal it. Elena methodically cleaned her welding equipment and stored it in her locker. Underneath her standard-issue coveralls, she wore a black bodysuit with subtle modifications, reinforced areas around vital organ, integrated communication systems, and fabric designed to defeat thermal imaging. She walked calmly to a maintenance hatch that most people assumed led to utility tunnel. Her ID badge didn't just beep at the scanner. It triggered a secondary authentication system that verified her DNA through skin contact with the reader. The hatch opened to reveal not maintenance tunnels, but a high-speed transport system that could move her anywhere on the base in under 3 minutes. As Elena descended into the transport tube, she activated her real communication system. "Neptune 7 to control. Convergence pattern detected. Hostile extraction in progress." The voice that responded was encrypted beyond recognition. "Confirmed 7. Primary asset protection authorized. Eliminate all threats to operational security." Elena's mission had just changed from intelligence gathering to threat elimination. The transport system delivered her to sub-level 4 of the command complex, an area that didn't appear on any base schematics. From there, she could access every critical system on the base through passages that had been built during the Cold War and forgotten by everyone except Neptune Division. Meanwhile, 4 levels beneath the shipyard, in the Nuclear Emergency Command Center, the most experienced naval officers in America were gathering to manage what appeared to be an imminent reactor breach. Admiral Robert Chen had been rushed from his quarters to an underground facility designed to coordinate nuclear crisis response. But there was a problem. "Sir, we've lost contact with the reactor monitoring systems," reported Captain Jennifer Walsh, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Primary and secondary sensors are showing conflicting data, and we can't establish a reliable assessment of the core status." Admiral Chen looked around the command center at his assembled experts, nuclear engineers, submarine commanders, crisis management specialists. All of them were staring at displays that made no sense, realizing that their understanding of their own systems had massive blind spots. "How long until we know if this is a real meltdown?" the Admiral demanded. "Unknown, sir," replied Commander Patterson. "The monitoring system requires access to classified protocols that aren't available through standard channels." "What do you mean, not available?" Captain Walsh snapped. "This is Norfolk Naval Shipyard. We built these systems." Commander Patterson looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, there are certain monitoring protocols that operate on a compartmentalized basis. Even with our clearances, some systems are restricted to need-to-know personnel only. What none of them knew was that the reactor emergency was completely fabricated. The real crisis was happening 3 levels above them, where foreign operatives were attempting to access the most classified submarine technologies in the American arsenal. Elena moved through the hidden passages with practiced efficiency. Her night vision equipment showed her the base layout in perfect detail, including the 3 heat signatures that were now attempting to breach the submarine design archives. Through her earpiece, she could hear their communications, Chinese military intelligence, Mandarin mixed with technical English. They had been planning this operation for months, using the submarine delivery schedule to time their infiltration perfectly. "Package located," came a voice through her intercept system. "Beginning data extraction." Elena quickened her pace. Whatever they were stealing, it was worth enough to risk a nuclear emergency false alarm. That meant it was related to the new submarine propulsion systems that made American subs invisible to sonar. She reached access point 7 and began her ascent toward the archives level. That's when the command center's main door opened with a soft pneumatic hiss, and Elena Vasquez walked in. The silence was profound. Security personnel reached for their weapons before recognizing her face, the night shift welder who had been working the yards for 8 years. But something was different about her now. Gone was the slightly slightly hunched posture of someone who spent hours bent over welding work. Her movements were precise, controlled, predatory. Her coveralls had been replaced by tactical gear that seemed to absorb light. "Excuse me," stammered Security Chief Martinez. "Ma'am, this is a restricted area." Elena didn't respond to him. Instead, she walked directly to the reactor monitoring console that had been dark since the crisis began. She placed her palm on a scanner that looked like standard equipment but wasn't listed in any base manual. The scanner flashed green, and suddenly, banks of equipment that had been offline began humming with activity. Displays that hadn't shown any useful data erupted with detailed reactor telemetry from every system on the base. "Reactor status nominal," she announced in a voice that was no longer deferential or quiet. The tone was authoritative, commanding. "Virginia's core is operating within normal parameters. Containment is intact." The alarm was triggered by a sophisticated cyber attack designed to simulate meltdown conditions. The transformation in her voice was so complete that several people in the room stepped backward. This wasn't the same person who had been welding hull plates for 8 years. Admiral Chen stared at her, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "Who the hell are you?" Elena turned to face him, and for the first time in 8 years, she dropped her carefully maintained cover completely. The change was startling, not just in posture and voice, but in the way she seemed to command the space around her. "Admiral Chen, my name is Elena Vasquez. Operational designation Ghost 7. I am a field operative for Neptune Division, a deep-cover naval intelligence unit that officially doesn't exist. I've been embedded at Norfolk for the past 8 years, monitoring threats to submarine technology and nuclear security." The room erupted in confused voices until Admiral Chen raised his hand for silence. But it was the look in Elena's eyes that actually quieted the room, a look that suggested consequences for anyone who interfered. "Neptune Division?" the Admiral asked carefully. "I've never been briefed on any Neptune Division." "That's by design, sir. Neptune Division operates under direct naval intelligence authority, but with compartmentalization so strict that knowledge of our existence is limited to 5 people in the Navy. You're about to become the 6th. She activated displays showing submarine movements around the globe, but these weren't ordinary tracking systems. They showed real-time positions of every submarine on Earth, including ones that were supposed to be undetectable. We track every underwater vessel through a network of quantum sensors that I've been installing for the past 8 years. Each submarine you thought I was repairing, I was actually upgrading with technology that makes our entire fleet invisible to enemy detection." Captain Walsh stepped forward, her face flushed with indignation. "This is impossible. I'm the base intelligence officer. I would know about any operation of this magnitude." Elena looked at her with an expression that was professional but absolutely lethal. "Captain Walsh, your clearance level doesn't extend to Neptune Division operations. In fact, your name appears in our files as a person of interest due to your relationship with Chinese Naval Attaché Commander Liu Wei." Walsh went pale. "That's a diplomatic contact authorized by Naval Intelligence. Commander Liu is an agent for the Ministry of State Security." Elena replied simply. "Your diplomatic dinners have been monitored by Neptune Division for the past 14 months. She brought up files that made Walsh stagger backward. Photographs of her meetings with Liu, recordings of conversations, financial records showing unexplained deposits in her bank account. More importantly," Elena continued, "Liu's intelligence network is currently attempting to steal our submarine propulsion data from the archives 3 levels above us." Commander Patterson found his voice. "How do we verify anything you're telling us?" Instead of answering directly, Elena moved to another console and brought up classified submarine schematics that made everyone in the room realize how little they actually knew about their own vessels. Virginia-class subs had systems that weren't in any official documentation. "Every submarine that's passed through Norfolk has been equipped with Neptune Division enhancements," she explained. "Stealth systems that make our subs invisible to sonar, communication arrays that can penetrate any depth, and defensive systems that can eliminate threats before they're detected." She switched to live feeds from inside the base. But none of that matters if foreign powers steal the technology. The cyber attack was designed to cover a physical infiltration. The displays showed heat signatures moving through areas that should have been empty. 3 operatives are currently attempting to access the classified propulsion data for our next-generation submarine. Admiral Chen leaned forward. "How did you know about this when our entire security apparatus missed it?" "Because Neptune Division has been tracking this operation for 6 months, sir. We allowed it to develop so we could identify the complete network and eliminate it permanently." She pulled up personnel files that made several people in the room step back in recognition. Base personnel who had been exhibiting suspicious behavior, contractors with questionable backgrounds, even a few officers whose loyalties had been compromised. "This infiltration involves assets who have been in position for years. Some have base access, some have submarine specifications, some are people you trust. Elena's expression hardened. And some of them are in this room. Commander Patterson, who had been silent until now, spoke up with barely concealed panic. If Neptune Division is so capable, why all the secrecy? Why embed an operative as a welder? Elena's smile was thin and dangerous. Because submarine technology requires hands-on access to understand, Commander. You can't monitor propulsion systems from an office. You need to touch the hulls, install the sensors, modify the equipment. She gestured to the displays showing the infiltrators. These operatives aren't just stealing blueprints. They're planting devices that would allow remote access to our submarine fleet. The ability to track, disable, or even sink our most advanced vessels. How many submarines are compromised? Admiral Chen asked quietly. None, sir, because I've been there first. Every system they think they're stealing has been modified by Neptune Division. The technology they're accessing tonight will lead them directly into our trap. She activated another display showing submarine positions and projected kill zones. What they don't know is that the propulsion data they're stealing contains a virus that will infect their entire submarine fleet when they try to implement it. Admiral Chen looked at the displays showing the immediate threat, then at the officers who were supposed to protect the fleet but had been caught completely off guard. What do you need from us? Authorization to activate Neptune Division protocols, sir. We have 3 infiltrators in the facility and support teams standing by for extraction. This needs to end tonight. What kind of protocols? The kind that protect naval secrets by any means necessary, Admiral. The weight of her words settled over the room. This wasn't about arrests or court proceedings. This was about permanent solutions to threats against national security. But first, Elena continued, we need to remove the compromised officer from this room. All eyes turned to Captain Walsh, who had gone completely white. Captain Walsh has been transmitting base security protocols to Commander Liu for over a year, Elena stated matter-of-factly. Tonight's operation was timed using information she provided about submarine maintenance schedules. Walsh started to protest, but Elena cut her off by displaying recordings of encrypted phone calls, time-stamped just hours before the infiltration began. The only question, Elena said, is whether she was a willing asset or just incredibly naive. Admiral Chen looked at Walsh with a mixture of anger and disappointment. Captain, you're relieved of duty immediately. Security, escort her to confinement. As Walsh was led away, Elena turned back to the Admiral. Now we finish this. How many people are we talking about? Admiral Chen asked. 7 confirmed hostiles on base, plus external support networks totaling approximately 20 targets. All foreign intelligence operatives attempting to compromise U.S. submarine capabilities. She brought up real-time tracking data showing the infiltrators moving deeper into the classified areas. We have approximately 15 minutes before they complete their mission and extract. After that, they disappear forever with technology that took decades to develop. The Admiral studied the woman who had been welding submarine hulls while secretly protecting them. Do it. Elena nodded and began entering commands into systems that officially didn't exist. Across the base, Neptune Division operatives who had been waiting in position received encrypted signals. The operation lasted exactly 18 minutes. When it was over, Elena turned back to the stunned officers in the command center. Threat neutralized, Admiral. All infiltrators eliminated. Submarine technology secure. What happens now? Admiral Chen asked. Now you forget this conversation happened, Elena replied, her voice returning to its familiar quiet tone. Tomorrow night, I'll be back welding Virginia's hull, and you'll continue believing I'm just the reliable contractor who works the night shift. She moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Admiral? The new submarine stealth systems I've been installing will be activated fleet-wide next month. Our submarines will become completely invisible to any detection system on Earth. How's that possible? Because for 8 years, I haven't just been welding hulls, sir. I've been transforming them into something the world has never seen. As she left the command center, Admiral Chen realized he was looking at someone who wielded more real power over naval security than anyone else in the room. Power that operated in darkness, protected by invisibility, and enabled by the fact that no one ever paid attention to the people who actually touched their ships. The next night, Elena Vasquez was back at Dry Dock 3, wearing her standard coveralls and welding mask, working on Virginia's hull with the same methodical precision she'd shown for 8 years. When Admiral Chen made an unscheduled inspection, she looked up from her work with polite recognition. Evening, Admiral. Just finishing up the starboard plating? He stared at her for a moment, searching her face for any sign of the lethal operative who had saved the submarine fleet the night before. But there was nothing, just the familiar, unremarkable welder who had become part of the shipyard's midnight landscape. Carry on, he said finally. As she returned to her welding, their eyes met briefly through her mask's visor. In that moment, he felt the heat from her torch and realized it wasn't just metal she was forging. She was shaping the security of the entire Navy, one weld at a time. Admiral Chen walked away, understanding that he would never again underestimate the quiet people who worked in the shadows of his command. land, because somewhere among them were guardians whose very existence depended on remaining invisible. Some secrets run deeper than the ocean. Some protectors work where no light penetrates. And sometimes the most important person on a naval base is the one nobody notices until submarines start disappearing. Elena Vasquez returned to her welding, protecting a fleet that would never know her name, eliminating threats that would never make headlines, and strengthening hulls that carried sailors who owed her their lives without ever realizing it. Because that's what Neptune Division does. They guard the depths by mastering the darkness, and they disappear so completely that even their victories remain submerged forever. The perfect secret never surfaced.